Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 9:30 p.m. Friday night, May the 21st, Calgary, Alberta. I'm so happy to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us. It's a 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and I've got my chat room open if anybody wants to come and sit in there. Tonight we're just going to continue talking about some statistics of child abuse, and also looking at the Child Abuse Handbook, which was written by best-selling author and president of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, Donna Shear, and also co-written by Sandra Potter, the CEO and founder. And I just want to take a look at that. That's a free PDF download, and you can get that right on the website, http dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. And I just want to kind of go through that and just take a look at some of the statistics that they have on there. And we were already started to look at that article on Wednesday night, and I just kind of wanted to go and sort of go through it, right? We were looking at statistics, and the statistics of child abuse. When you start actually taking a look at these statistics, you can just see what an epidemic this really is. It's so huge. It's such a huge problem. I think that's why people just have a hard time thinking about even tackling it, and that's why society has a hard time even thinking about how are we going to fix this? How would we even start to help these children, right? And what it really takes is communities getting together and really working to find ways to prevent child abuse. It takes organizations like Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, who are not-for-profit organizations who are out there every day, 365 days a year. Basically, somebody's out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, working on trying to stop and prevent child abuse, right? And that's what it takes. It takes all of us. It takes you and it takes me to stop human rights abuses. And child abuse is a human rights abuse. So it's just so important to take a look at this and not just skip over the articles and just think, oh well, it's not my problem. It really is all of our problems. I was looking at an article on I think it was Child Help, www.childhelp.org, I believe that's what it was. It's Child Help's website, and they have a great bunch of statistics on there, and I'll make sure I get that for you. They were talking $104 billion a year is spent on because of child abuse. $104 billion a year of taxpayers' money is the total that they've come up with that's spent on because of child abuse. Now that could be going. We need to stop child abuse, and then that money should be going to help prevent child abuse, not picking up after the mess has already happened. You know what I mean? So that's the whole issue. This is a huge issue, and it's very important that we all get involved and get very proactive in our own communities, within our own homes, our own families, within our own communities, really, to make this change and to make it stop. So, I'm not a professional. I don't hold any professional certificates, counseling certificates, therapy certificates, anything like that. I'm just a private citizen who believes that we need to talk about child abuse. I think that silencing child abuse and silencing people who are talking about child abuse allows it to continue on. And the reason being is that abusers want to keep it silent. The more the abuser can keep the abuse silent, the more they can continue to abuse children. And that's the huge problem with silence. And nobody wants to hear about child abuse, but it's unfortunate because there's just too many voices out there now, and I just wanted to join them and be one more voice. And another reason why silence is really bad is because what a community doesn't know about, they don't worry about. If a community doesn't realize that there's just so much abuse going on, then there will be no funding for it, and also they don't realize that it's happening, so then no one's thinking about how to stop it. And this is really sort of the way it works with everything. What the community and what people don't know about, they don't know to worry about or to try to change it for the better. And so that's why I think everybody's voice is very important in this issue, actually for all human rights, and I would hope everybody would stand up for all human rights, not just child rights. But I stand up for children because children don't have a voice, and children need our help. And so That's why I'm doing what I do. So I'm just a person who pays to do my own blog talk shows, and I would ask that you would listen at your own discretion. If the topics of abuse bother you, please turn off the show. It's ultimately your decision. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I cover a lot of adult material on this show. It's ultimately about stopping child abuse. It's for children to stop child abuse. But the problem being is that there's a lot of adult material sometimes on my shows, and I would ask that you would have an adult listen with you, someone who you trust, a parent or someone who cares about you and really cares about what you're doing online, because the FBI reports that there are millions, literally millions, of child sexual predators out there online at any given time, and it's so important to keep yourself safe and to know that there's these child sexual predators are out there, and they will do just about anything to get a hold of a young child or a young adult and abuse them. So you have to know how to keep yourself safe. And you can find all kinds of great information out there on how to keep yourself safe when you're online, and how not to give out your personal name, not to give out your real name. Use a different name, a made-up name when you're online. And, if you're going into chat rooms, make sure you do not tell them where you live. Do not give them your phone number. Don't tell them what school you go to. And don't tell them, anything personal about yourself. No phone numbers, no addresses, no nothing like that. Because this is how they find children. They groom children. They get a hold of children. And they say that they're 12 years old, 14 years old. They like to skateboard. They like to go to the mall and watch movies and play Xbox and whatnot. And then you find out that later they want to meet with you somewhere, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm 14 years old. I'm your buddy. Meet me after school." So you do, and these kids meet these people, and it turns out that they are adult child sexual predators, and then they assault these children and abuse these children, and then these children, if they're not killed, have to suffer with a lifetime of effects from being abused by these child sexual predators. So be warned. Be very careful what you're doing out there online, and make sure that you have an adult know what you're doing out there when you're online, and tell your friends, because you want to save your friends' lives. It's so important. I would hope that if your friends knew this information, they would tell you. So you make sure you tell your friends to be very careful and to watch what you're doing online. So important. So I'm all about fighting for child rights, and I'm trying to save children's lives, and I think we cannot do enough, and we cannot talk enough about saving children's lives. And so I really think this is just so important, and that's why I'm doing this show. I pay my own money out of my own pocket to do this, and I can't afford to, but I'm doing it anyway because we all need our voices out here, and this is just one way I can do it. I can do these shows from home. I work full time. I have my sweetheart is terminally ill. I also I'm involved in his life, and I try to help him as much as I can. And I'm extremely busy, and I volunteer for 7 different organizations. But I am the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and that sits so big in my heart because I'm so happy to be able to be a part of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children and to be able to do this and to help stop child abuse and to help protect child rights. And so this is just the beginning for me, and Dreamcatchers for Abused Children is on to some great things this summer. I hope you will check our website out, http://dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. And so yeah, that's why I'm doing this show. So everyone just listen at your own discretion, and if the topic bothers you, please turn it off. So we're going to look at statistics that I found on the Child Abuse Handbook that was written by Donna Shear and Sandra Potter. And we were looking at Wednesday night, we were just looking at some of the beginning parts of it, and then we started to look at what is child abuse, right? And so, they were saying, for instance, 1 in every 3 girls and 1 in every 6 boys will be sexually molested before the age of 18. Every 10 seconds, a child is raped or killed in the United States. So if you can count to 10 seconds, each 10 seconds that goes by is another child who will be raped or killed in the United States alone. That's just the United States. That doesn't include Canada or anywhere else in the world. Today, up to 5 children will die from abuse or neglect. And that's pretty standard across the board. Child Help website has that on there as well. In 13 seconds, another child will be abused in the United States. There are 2.9 million child abuse reports made in 1992. So you can imagine how many are made now because it's escalated, right? It kind of went down for a little while, or just wasn't being reported. We're not sure. But now it seems to be on the rise, child abuse. But it might just be that people are doing the right thing and reporting it, which is very important, and we have to know how to do that. Only 28% of the children identified as harmed by abuse are investigated. So only 30%. That's just not enough. And today 6 children will commit suicide. That's what we were sort of talking about on Monday night. Wednesday night. I just couldn't believe that. It's just crazy. 6 children will commit suicide today. That's an average, and it's just a statistic out there. But on average, 6 children. So why are children committing suicide? Why do they even know how to commit suicide? What would even be in a child's mind or going through their mind, to make them commit suicide? It would have to be so incredibly bad. Children don't think about killing themselves. You know what I mean? So there's something wrong. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death, ages 15 to 24. Untreated child abuse increases the likelihood of arrest for a violent crime by 38%. And 60 million survivors are former victims of child sexual abuse in America today. Now, get a hold of that. 60 million survivors are former victims of child sexual abuse in America today. And that's when this was written, but it's more now. That is horrible. That's absolutely crazy, and that needs to stop. And that's why I'm out here doing this. And I'm going to keep talking and just keep talking and keep talking. And I hope everyone will join me. 38% of women and 20% of men have been sexually abused during adolescence. It is estimated that 3% to 6% of the clergy population has abused a child. And the typical child sex offender molests an average of 117 children, most of whom do not report the offense. That's the typical child sexual offender, right? One child sexual predator molests an average of 117 children, most of whom do not report the abuse or the offense. This is crazy. It's got to stop. And I really hope that we will all get involved. And no matter what way we get involved, just as long as we're getting involved. Because that's just it. We all have our gifts to bring to this, and we all have different ways that we like to advocate. And I love, talking to other advocates out there they have their own websites, they have their own work that they do, and it makes me so happy to stand with them and just be part of the change, part of the positive change, to make a difference for children today, to make a difference for children tomorrow and the next year and the next year, and hopefully it just gets better and better, and we find programs and ways that will actually work and to stop child abuse, to help prevent and then finally completely stop it. It says, imagine the outcry if these statistics represented a disease which was wiping out 5 children per day, victimizing millions, and whose byproducts were disabilities and expanding violence. Youth rights are really about human rights, and simple empathy is a giant first step to the benefits of increased awareness. The high jump in child abuse statistics shows the importance of youth rights by showing cases of frightening lack of knowledge. So that's what they wrote here. And then they said, what is child abuse? I'm reading from this PDF, and you can pull this PDF up if you want to. It's a free PDF download from the site, from DreamCatchersForAbusedChildren.com, and it's a free PDF handbook for anybody who wants it. They would like for people to have a copy of this, because the more people that know the signs and symptoms. First of all, this is very important to know the signs and symptoms of abuse, what to look for, because some abuse is very easy to spot. If a child is being physically abused and battered, you will notice bruising, in quite often different parts of the body. If they're neglected, you can tell by the way they look and the way that they're dressed, and they might not be very clean, and they might be starving or kind of hungry. That's a good signs of neglect. See, there's all kinds of signs. Some are easy to spot, and some are not. And that's why it's really important to know all the signs and symptoms of all the different kinds of abuse, whether it's physical, psychological, verbal, emotional, or sexual. Right? Really have to know all the signs. And that way, if you look around at all the children in your world, and you'd be a bit more aware of what to look for and what to be aware of. And then if you see some of this and you suspect abuse, then you can report it, then get some help for that child, right? And they said, don't wait to try to be an investigator yourself. That is not a wise idea. Best thing to do is report it and let the professionals take a good look at what's going on and get that child some help. Right? It's just so important. You could be the only person that would step in and intervene for that child, and you could save that child's life. And that's the whole issue, right? We want to save children's lives. Children are dying every day at the hands of caregivers and parents, and it's just it's a real shame, and it needs to stop. Somebody in that child's life has to know what's going on, but they're just not reporting it. It's either out of fear or that they were abused themselves quite often, and they don't they have so much damage done to themselves that they just can't get a grip on the proper way to handle things, you know what I mean? So they don't report it, and so, it's unfortunate. And there's lots of reasons why people don't report it. And it's unfortunate because that child, you could be the last person that child sees before they're killed by their parents or caregivers. And that's the whole issue, right? You can't wait for somebody else to make the phone call. Quite often there won't be another chance, and that child will be killed, and especially small children. There's lots of small children dying, babies really from birth to especially 4 years old are dying because parents can't cope and the caregivers can't cope, and so they have these young children, and all of a sudden they realize it's just they have too much stress in their lives, and they didn't want these kids anyway, and half the time they were already abusive before the child was already born, and so they take their anger and aggression out on that child and turn it into just some sort of a punching bag or something to torture or use in whatever way that they want. And these children were not brought into the world for that purpose. Children are born and they should be treated as precious babies, and parents should not be having, I can't understand why people have children and think they have to kill them. Better off to take that child and get that child placed into care. You know what I mean? Take that child to the police station and just say, look, I cannot look after this child. I'd rather not hurt my child or kill my child. You need to take this child, because it's better to do that than it is to kill the child. And we see so much of that in the paper, and so many headlines out there of children being killed and murdered every day. And if they're not killed or murdered, they're in the hospital due to abuse-related injuries, and if that's not the case, then nobody reports it, the child will suffer immensely in a home that you wouldn't really wish on your worst enemy, right? So this is the whole thing. It's not funny, and it's actually very, very serious, and people need to do all they can to stop child abuse, right? It says, what is child abuse? Child abuse is the physical, psychological, or sexual maltreatment of children. While most child abuse happens in the child's home, a significant portion also occurs in organizations involving children, such as churches, schools, child care businesses, residential schools, right? There are 4 major categories of child abuse. That's neglect, physical abuse, psychological or emotional abuse, and sexual abuse. And there are different subcategories within each type of abuse. I'm just reading right from this PDF, right? It says it's easy to identify some forms of child abuse, but difficult for other forms. And the fact that a child experienced harm doesn't necessarily reveal abuse, because some abuse you just can't see, right? But it says here, child abuse is an action or inaction that harms a child. And the person responsible should have known their action or inaction was likely to cause harm. And it says, child abuse from the standpoint of the victim is anything that harms you, right? Child abuse happens in many different ways, but the result is the same: serious physical or emotional harm. Physical or sexual abuse may be the most striking types of abuse, since they often unfortunately leave physical evidence behind. And however, emotional abuse and neglect are serious types of child abuse. They are often more subtle and difficult to spot. See, that's the problem with emotional abuse and neglect. It's harder to spot. And so that's why you have to know the signs and symptoms, right? I do study this all the time. I study child rights and I study child abuse issues because I'm going to spend the rest of my life fighting for child rights to the day I drop on this planet, and it's over for me. I'll have done everything that I can to try to help protect children and to keep child rights in place and to help build on those and get better laws in place. Better protection for children, right? So important. Child neglect is the most common type of child abuse, they said. Each state provides its own definitions of child abuse and neglect based on minimum standards set by federal law. It says, how is child abuse and neglect defined in federal law? Federal legislation lays the groundwork for states by identifying a minimum set of acts or behaviors that define child abuse and neglect. Most federal and state child protection laws primarily refer to cases of harm to a child caused by parents or other caregivers. They generally do not include harm caused by other people, such as acquaintances or strangers. It says the Federal Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, the CAPTA, C-A-P-T-A, 42 U.S.C.A. 85106G, defines child abuse and neglect as, at a minimum, any recent act or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker which results in death, serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse or exploitation, or an act or failure to act which represents an imminent risk of serious harm. So, see, it's either the action or inaction that harms a child. That is what child abuse is. So, Absolutely horrible. Here's some child abuse facts that are on this PDF, this child abuse handbook. We've got about 10 minutes left. This is all so absolutely horrible, and I hope we can stop child abuse, because then we can all go home and do something else. You know what I mean? I really hope that more voices will join in, because we need more voices. We need every single voice we can get out there. And I know, a lot of advocates listen to my show, and I'm not even sure who's in my chat room here tonight, but I thank everybody for being here. I have lots and lots of friends who are advocates, and they are doing everything they can to be a part of the solution, you know what I mean, to stop child abuse. And that makes me happy. I'm so happy to stand with all of you and to be a voice, just together, a huge, loud, resounding voice, and I know it's just going to keep growing and growing. It'll be louder and louder until the public and everybody else in the government cannot tune it out. We're going to get so loud, you know what I mean, that there won't be any way they can tune it out, and everybody will have to listen, and abusers will have to stop what they're doing, and everybody will have to get help, because that's the whole issue, right? These people who are abusing these children obviously need help, but who needs the help more? The child. So that's why I think we need to concentrate really more on child protection, and then worry about getting these people some help, because children are dying right now as we speak, and if they're not, there's every 10 seconds a child is being raped in the United States. Now that was on another website as well. I've seen that on quite a few websites, so that is a pretty sort of a statistic that's sort of out there, right? Every 10 seconds a child is raped in the United States. That's horrible. What is wrong with that picture? First of all, it's against the law. Second of all, who's sick enough to do that? Well, millions of people, let me tell you. And it's just like people in your own family, because that's who's doing it. It's generally a family member. 80%, actually 90%. Some statistics say 83 to 90 something percent, but in other statistics say 90%. But 90%, pretty much, 90% of abuse goes on by a family member, whether it's sexual, physical, verbal, emotional, because it's who the child is around. You got to think about that. Who's abusing these children? Well, it's whoever has access to these children. The other 10% would be like a child sexual predator, an abduction or something. But generally, it's somebody the child knows and quite often trusts. And so, every 10 seconds a child is being raped by someone that they trust and they know. So it's probably a family member or a friend of the family or something. Absolutely horrible, and I wish more people would report it, and then I really, really like to see these people have to pay the maximum sentence available, which would be something very, very serious, so that we can stop this, right? If people thought that if they got caught that they would never, ever get out of jail and they'd have to do life with no parole ever, they'd just be put behind bars and sort of forgotten about, I think they might think again about what they're doing. Maybe not, because people are pretty sick and they need help. See, that's the whole issue. But I really believe the children need help more, so we need to really get some protection going for these children. It's just crazy. They said here, these are child abuse facts in the United States. The safest family for a child is a home in which the biological parents are married. Now, this is just statistics that they pulled off. They actually, on this PDF, you can go and check it out. They have all their references listed there, which is awesome, because then you can see where this information came from, where they got this information. It's so important, right? They've pulled it off of, the National Clearinghouse, all kinds of different websites out there with really good statistics, right? Cohabitation and increasing phenomenon is a major factor in child abuse. The incidence of child abuse decreases significantly as family income increases. So, if families start doing better financially, there tends to be a drop in the amount of abuse out there. Child abuse frequently is intergenerational, and that's true. That they do know. Child abuse is prevalent in communities of abuse with family breakdown, and that's a given. You know what I mean? When families break down, especially within whole areas of a certain city, you will see that there is a lot of abuse and a lot of problems. Child abuse is directly associated with serious violent crime, and the lowest risk for physical abuse is one in which the biological parents are married and the family has always been intact. And abuse is 6 times higher in the second safest environment, the blended family, in which the divorced mother has remarried. Abuse is 6 times higher in the second safest environment. So in a blended family with a divorced mother is remarried, that's the abuse is 6 times higher. the possibility for abuse, or the statistics, right? Terrible. Abuse is 14% higher if the child is living with a biological mother who lives alone. And abuse is 20 times higher if the child is living with a biological father who lives alone. So it just tells you, they've done the work on it, they've done the studies. Abuse is 20 times higher if the child is with biological parents who are not married but are cohabiting. And abuse is 33 times higher if the child is living with a mother who is living with a man, just a boyfriend or whatever. And 1,500 children die from abuse each year. Now, when this article came out, that's what they were saying. I don't know exactly to date what the statistics are. We could find it out just by looking on the web for 2009 anyway, right? There are 140,000 injuries to children from abuse each year. That's just the reported, right? Who knows about all the unreported abuse, right? That's the whole thing. It's underreported. They know that. There are 1.7 million reports of child abuse each year. And 1 in 4 women in North America were molested in childhood. And 2 million plus cases of child abuse and neglect are reported each year in the United States. And estimated 150,000 to 200,000 new cases of sexual abuse occur each year. Now that's crazy. 150,000 to 200,000 new cases of sexual abuse occur each year. And on a show that we were doing on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio on yesterday, Thursday, with Elizabeth Roberts-Brawley, the Southern Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. She had an article there that was quite interesting, and or it might have been Monday night, but anyway, it was last week. It was earlier this week. She was talking about the fact that she was reading from an article regarding Dallas, Fort Worth. They were saying that there were so many abuse cases going on right now that children are on waiting lists to get help. That's how many abuse cases are actually being reported. Thank God they're reporting them. But the problem being is there's not enough facilities, there's not enough people who are trained professionals that can help these children. So they're basically on waiting lists to actually get help. They're not in the home anymore, obviously, probably removed from the home. But it's just that they can't get any like counseling or these child clinicians, and child psychologists and whatnot can't even get to them because there's too many cases. And this is a very recent article. This is just coming out in the news this week. And that's a problem. That's a real problem, because that means there's just too many children are being abused, right? And that's why we all have to stand up, and we have to stand up now. We can't wait till next year or 10 years from now, right? I say that we need to do this now, because too many children are being abused, and we really have to make a difference. I hope that we can do something like right now to help stop this. You know what I mean? It says there. Let's see. I'll keep reading here. There were an estimated 903,000 victims of maltreatment nationwide. An estimated 1,100 children died of abuse and neglect, a rate of approximately 1.6. That's terrible. And that's just crazy. And that's pretty standard. 1,100 children died of abuse and neglect. That's per year. And, that makes my heart break, because we see these articles every day. An average of 5 children, will die every day due to abuse. And it's just horrible. And it says, each day in the U.S., more than 3 children die as a result of child abuse in the home. And actually, it's actually more like 5. Child abuse is reported on average every 10 seconds, and it's underreported. So we can imagine if it was reported like it should be all the time, it would be way more than every 10 seconds, right? And approximately 3 million child abuse reports are made each year. That's pretty standard across the board. I've seen that on lots of different statistic websites. It's just absolutely horrible. And they have worldwide statistics on here, signs of physical child abuse, all the different signs and symptoms, which I think we'll go into. We'll take a look at that next week. Well, it's so great. I'm so glad that you could be here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning in. And be sure and check our website out. Dreamcatchers for Abused Children has a great website, http://dreamcatchersforAbusedChildren.com. And of course, you can get this PDF download that I was just reading from, and it's for free. You can just download that, and there's all the signs and symptoms, how to report abuse, all kinds of great information on there. And the website is it's daily. It's updated daily. It's very new, current information, and people are on there working on it every day, and just to bring the latest information to people. So please check it out, http://dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. And thanks for tuning in and being here with me. I really appreciate hanging out and listening to my show. I'll be back on next week. I'm off for the weekend, and I'm just going to take some time and relax. And I really hope that you all take care of yourselves until the next time. And have a great weekend, everybody. I'll see you Monday back 6 o'clock in the morning for One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and then Monday night with on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio on Blog Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers with Elizabeth Roberts Brawley. Will be on Monday night. I'll be co-hosting with her. She'll be hosting that show. And so I hope that you can tune in. But in the meantime, I really hope that you take care of yourselves. If you need anything, get a hold of me on blogtalkradio.com or Facebook. And, I'm always around. So take care, everybody. And you're in my heart. You're in my prayers. And I just hope that you have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.